Yeah, but the FFA got started when I was probably a junior, senior. So they had a foreign arc welder there in the shop. And of course, they had a new one. So, first welder I ever welded on. Now, this guy was named McQuarter that run the case in Holly. Then he sold out and he moved to the mountains, I guess. But,
So you were in 2 years of FFA?
yeah,
Okay.
something like that.
And did they have the judging shows and all of that stuff? I mean, what did you do in FFA? Well,
Oh, yeah, we'd go out and sometimes we'd work calves and some sheep, I think.
go
The-
work
the-
for area farmers and ranchers is
Yeah,
what you
right.
did. Okay.
And the ag teacher, a pretty good old boy, but he didn't know much about shop. But he wanted to be a veterinarian, but I guess he didn't pass all the tests, so he turned out to be an ag teacher.
Oh.
But he knew a lot about livestock. Yeah, he could do all kinds of stuff. And about the worst job he ever was around, we take a cancer eye out of a cow. And that's a smelly bad job.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, Wilbur Cloud was that guy's name. He had a daughter my age, and he had a boy a little younger. And he bought a farm down by Holly, out west, a little ways north of Holly, kind of irrigated deal. And my dad sold him a Farmall regular for $100. And that old kid drove it from our place to Grenada, and I suppose they drove from Grenada to Holly, I suppose. He'd probably run about 5 miles an hour, 4.5 or something. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, after Cloud bought this farm, he had 100 acres there on the south side of the canal that goes through there. And he wanted me to plow for him. So I used Dad's W6 in one way, and I go down and plow this 100 acres. And I must be how I got my $100 to buy that tractor, because I never did find a check for my first tractor.
Oh, so you traded
Yeah.
for it.
Now I had checks on my Farmall F30, so I bought them. I bought 2 south of Lamar, and I bought one in Syracuse. 3 of them that wouldn't run, and some more parts. I made 2 run out of all the pieces.
Oh, okay.
But that one cost me $51, and those 2 cost me $75. That's how I get farming cheap, see?
That's it.
And I bought a 4-row lister from John Deere, and it was pretty cheap, a little over $100 for it.
We won't have any stories like that, will we, honey? I mean, how many thousands and thousands did we spend on stuff?
They had a case dealership in Lamar back then, and he was quite a machinery trader. So I got my first maize planting machine from him. It was called a Moline Unitiller. And those early Unitillers had 1 bar, and the new ones had 2 bars, you know. They had 1 bar, and in front of that was angle iron, and the lift on it was mechanical lift. You pull a rope, and it's supposed to come out of the ground.
Oh.
And I think I was planting with that thing with I think maybe 6 rows. Then I went to a 5-row, bigger bottoms on it, when I got a Moline G6. Wheatland tractor works on 5 rows, better wood than anything else, because you straddle 2 rows. No, wait a minute, that don't sound right. My front wheels run down in the furrows. I'll say how 5 rows work very good. I had a sled for it too. But some of them, it's the most expensive machinery there. Must have been that $125 wheat drill. I started out pulling 1 drill, and then I got a bigger tractor. I could pull 2. And next time I get a bigger tractor, now I can pull 3 of them. So now I'm getting with it. That's like a 40-foot strip then. You're really planting wheat then.
Well, and you were cutting with how big of a header on your combine?
Well, the first combine had a 14-foot head.
14-foot header.
Mm-hmm.
And you were hauling wheat in a, 500 bushel truck? How many bushel would a...
No, my Chevy hauled about 200.
Oh, only 200.
Mhm.
Okay.
You know, tandems haul 600 if you have it stacked on there
okay.
pretty good.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
What do you suppose your fields averaged? What do you suppose your average bushel per acre was back then?
Well, I think you got 20 or 30, you thought you was doing pretty good. Of course, we had,
Some years we think 20 or 30 is pretty good here too.
well, there's kind of years. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it wasn't good. But I had a proven yield there one time on that Klecky land north of the creek. Some of that land had 40-acre bushel proven yield. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Of course, fertility was probably pretty good on all that land too, because it hadn't been broken out very long. Huh?
Yeah, right. Seemed like the first year wasn't so whippy. Second year, you usually got a better crop. But when they broke out a lot of the country in 46, then we had that big snowstorm. So then in 47, everybody had pretty good wheat. My dad's wheat wasn't that great, but it'd been farmed for a long time too.
Wow.
But when we moved over here on 10 Mile, see, there was 200 and some acres, and all of it hadn't been farmed lately, so some of it had just blow humps somewhere near the field. And then
Blow
what we
humps from
call
the dirty 30s probably.
yeah,
Huh?
and what you call we called the bed rail place,
Mm-hmm.
that was farmed. That's the only farmland you could see around there, or going to Lamar. There's no farmland along the road there either.
So the bed rail place is Woodward land.
Yeah,
That's where we took a picture the other day.
Right. And then how many acres did Grandpa farm then?
let's see, it must have been 200 and I'm gonna say 260 maybe.
And that's the land north of the Wolf Creek trees
Yeah.
where your house was.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it started farming that with a farm on regular. You plant with a 2-row lister, so you didn't do very many acres a day. And then my dad did, after he got going in business, he did buy some new machinery. He bought a new, about a 14, 15 foot wide disc, single disc. He got it new. He got a new 2-row corn binder. And before he retired, he bought one new G6 molding.
So with the corn binder, you would bind the corn stalks instead of picking corn cobs off. How'd that work with a binder?
Well, I don't know why they call them corn binder, but we use sorghum feed and their row crop machine, so they do a neat job of bundling, and you can tie tall feed with them, cut tall stuff.
Okay, so basically that would just be for doing your feed for your winter feed for your cattle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And some of that crop we raised, it'd get 4 or 5 feet tall, and then you bundle it and you shock it, and then it dries out. But then sometimes you cut the heads off with a combine, and you take the grain off in the bundles,
Oh,
sell
okay.
the grain or feed it or something,
Oh, okay.
and you have what's left over to feed your cows.
How would you cut the heads off?
Well, they had an attachment on the combine. In fact, I went over on Wolf Creek. I was the last one to use that combine, and the sickle sets like this instead of like that.
Oh, okay.
You
So you
turn
just
it.
lay the.
You lay the bundle up there, and off goes the head.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, old Ferd Martin down on the river, he had some tall sorghum that he raised for a seed crop, sell something to make insulators out of or something. So Dad and I went up there with that 2-row corn binder and bundled it for him. And they shocked it, and then he got me to go up there with that combine and cut the heads off on it.
Oh, okay.
So I'd take
You
it.
just drag the combine through the field, or drive the combine through the field, self-propelled or
It's a pull type,
pull type, and
and it's just like the one I got in the shed, except one I got's got an engine on it. And one my dad had is PTO drive.
okay, and you just drive it up to each shock.
Yeah, what I do, I drive up the shock. Of course, you don't have a reel on it. You take the reel off.
Right.
And I'd take the combine head and I'd push the feet over. Then I'd back up. Then they had a couple of Mexicans that feeding them combine.
Oh, okay.
And the only problem, had a little trouble with them guys, even though Savvy or act like they didn't. You gotta have one bundle at a time. You slap 2 of them on there, you ought to stop the sickle from running.
Oh,
But it handled 1 at a time all day long. And what was funny about that story, Sickle Bar was farming that land for they're related. He come out there and do a shock. There might be about a handful of grain laying there underneath it. Boy, he was moaning and groaning about that. Old Ferd said, "Oh, if you're going through the field, you never see it." So it didn't excite Ferd that much. But so I got some rags and hay bale wire, and I patched up the leak and kept on cutting off the heads. I made enough money out of that deal. I bought a 300 rifle, and I still got the gun, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the gun was $60.
You probably have a check for that too. If you...
Yeah. They had in those days they had a sporting goods store in Grenada, and so he decided to clear out his business, I guess. So I got that gun, and old Morrow up there by Bristol, he bought a 300 Magnum. That's an elephant gun, boy. He got it.
Not very many elephants around this part. Sporting goods store in Grenada. That's
Yeah,
hard to
about that.
believe. Tell us about the other stores in Grenada.
Well, when I started school there, they had 2 clothing stores, and then a drugstore, and of course they had a hardware store, and that was before they had the theater when I was first started school. And then, of course, they had a pool hall, and those guys go in there, and in the back room they go back and play poker back there outside.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they had a motel, and they had
Motel's where Shorty's Cafe is now, right? Or is that the same motel?
No, the motel would be east of Shorty's.
Oh, okay.
There was a motel there, and then right next to the motel was a cafe that went together. And after I got out of school, some people come up here from Texas named Littaws, and they run the motel and the cafe, and they had a laundry mat out in the back. Your mom used to take clothes in there. We didn't have any water, so she'd take clothes in there and get them washed in the laundry mat. And then when they built the theater is one half the building, hardware was the other half. They did big business there.
Where the Everharts had their lumber
Mm-hmm.
store. Okay.
So yeah, that's a pretty busy town here. Of course, the best cafe there was Ella Lewis, and she had a pretty good operation.
Must have been open for a lot of years. Carrie and I were talking about that the other day, how he was saying one of the best hamburgers you could get was at Ella's Cafe, but I don't know who owned it there toward the end,
Yeah.
before they closed it
I
down.
was thinking, didn't Cecil Tiller?
Cecil had it for a while, didn't she?
She might have.
Yeah.
After Mom quit or something, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. I forget Cecil's sisters to Jeannie Bizona. Yeah.
Her husband, Lewis, he threw the cup one time. He was gone for years, so they didn't know where he went.
How
And
many
I don't-
kids did he leave her with? Oh, the 3 girls, right? Did she
Yeah.
just have the 3 girls?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He always seemed like a pretty nice guy. I went over there one time when he was still out there and done some measurements. So I built those puddlers in high school, and I took measurements off them, so I didn't invent them. I stole their patent. I used to break crust of those puddlers. I had 4 of them hooked together, run them like a single disc,
Oh, yeah,
and that'd break crust big time.
I think, yeah.
In fact, I tandem some of them one time. That's just kind of farm with them then, like a tandem disc.
Yeah. I
was at school there one day, and the superintendent wanted me to, someone go to the office. I said, now what do I do? So I go in there, and there was a guy there from Goodyear Tar Company. So I'd entered this picture of this puddler in a Goodyear farm magazine. And I had it in my head here after several years. I thought I got $50 out of that deal, but I didn't. It was $25, and they took off a little bit for some reason, so I didn't get full 25. But anyhow,
So they came to the school
They come
to
to school.
present you with the prize, or?
yeah. So then I got there. Well, I had to go to Holly. To Donahill's was the nearest Goodyear dealer. You know, Donahill showed
Oh, right.
Chevrolets, you know. So I go in there, and so Donahill, he gave me a check, and then he was taking pictures of it. Then he had to give it back to him, so he takes more pictures. I thought I was going to lose it before it was all over.
That's pretty big money, wasn't it?
Well, I thought it was 50. I don't know where I come up with that number. Unless they made it in installments, maybe that just happened. Which I doubt that happened. I thought it was a bigger deal on $25. And what the deduction was or something. I don't know what that was.
For the gas it took to drive over there to present it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Donnie was a first new car from him.
Oh. What year was that?
It was a 58, but the 59s come out, 58.
So after you and Mom got married, because you and Mom got married June of 58.
Yeah. And we got that car in the fall of the year, about the time maize harvest was over, I think. And
Buick?
We took that car then and had everything kind of cleaned up around the farm, so we had a California in it.
What car was it?
59, what color?
No, what car? What make and model?
59 Chevy.
Oh, 59 Chevy.
Mhm.
Okay.
That car didn't turn out very good. In those days, you're supposed to drive under 50 miles an hour for the first 1,000 miles and change oil in it. That was a mistake. I should have run that thing wide open for the first 1,000 miles, and it probably never used oil then. It used oil all the time. So I kept telling Donnie, well, this car's using too much oil. Well, keep driving, it'll probably quit. Well, I kept driving until it was out of warranty, and then I paid him to fix it. Now, that's pretty dumb.
Giving advice to a new guy just beginning. Tell me the story of you and Mom buying furniture for your house.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty interesting. We done that before we got married. Went out to auction way out south of Coolidge someplace. And just a bunch of old furniture there. And this auctioneer was kind of an older guy. So he'd look at me, just starting out in life, young man, whatever the bid was, sold. I was going to bid on about all that stuff. Come up a whole truckload of stuff there for nearly nothing. He didn't give anyone else a chance to bid because nobody else wanted that junk anyhow.
It looked like it was all stuff you were bidding on. He wasn't just trying to stick you with the bid then.
But the time I bought my 55 Ford pickup, that was a bummer. Because I bought the 55 Ford car, and there was nothing wrong with it. It had like 27,000 miles on it. It's a pretty cheap car. So, and there was an auction over there. When you come out of Holly and hit the road going to Hartman, the first house there on the west side of the road, they was having an auction there. So I go over there, and that was in last of 58 or 59. So anyhow, a guy I knew from Bristol, he said, "You ought to buy that Ford pickup. That's a good pickup." I wasn't even thinking about buying a pickup. So the auctioneers started out hollering 500, 500. Nobody was saying anything. Like a dummy, I bid, and nobody else did. I got that lousy thing. It had a wore-out V8 in it and a 3-speed transmission. And go up in the mountains, elk hunting, it wouldn't climb much of a hill, because it didn't have low enough gear. It'd probably run 20 or 30 in first, and that was about it, I drove that thing up until 61. I put another engine in it. I drove about 61 and decided for some reason I could afford a new pickup. So I go into Hayes, and he looked my Ford over and said, "Why don't you take it over to the junkyard and see how much money they'll give you?" So I took it over there, and I had a propane system on it. I said, "I'll sell this to you, but I want to keep my propane system." I think he gave me $125 for it. So I guess the end of my Ford.
You probably got your money's worth out of it, maybe, right?
I drove quite a while. The first new machinery I bought was in Holly. It was a 4-section Harrow, just sitting up there on the hill. I'll dig it out of the dirt and paint it where it looked new again. I got a book that came from Manning's years ago. It's got all the old machinery in it. It must have been published in about 1939, because it's got H's and M's that come out in 39.
Oh,
I can tell them in the pictures difference from the newer H's because the seat's different. So it must have been printed in about 39 or 40. So there's all kinds of old machinery in there. It's interesting to look at. But don't have any prices on it. But it's something that the dealer would show you this catalog, and you can pick out what you want, and then you can get it for you if you didn't already
okay.
have it. You know.
Hmm.
But it has the Harrow in there, but it didn't show the hitch I got. And the hitch come with a, probably 1.25 inch pipe, and it was a kind of a 3-piece thing. And I used to load them back that old Ford pickup and hold them down the road. And one piece of time they put it back together when the Harrow my maze, you know. So anyhow, the old kid working for me, and we'd pulled the Harrow quite a bit, and we'd had a rain. And we sitting up here. We used to farm this up here where the jog is at, you know. We had sitting in that farmland, and we decided that we would lower it's a peg tooth Harrow. You loosen a little clamp and drive those down to get more teeth down, you know. And we drove them things all down, tightened the bolts. I got ready to go. I didn't realize that we drove in that wet dirt and just broke my hitch. I started to go. The hair didn't move. All we'd have done is just picked up each one of them
right.
and made it free again. That was a good story. The hitch wasn't what you call heavy duty, but strong enough to pull a Harrow if it wasn't drove in the ground.
If you spike it down, I think we've all got those stories. They're just more expensive nowadays.
Yeah, right. You pay more for your education than this.
Yeah.
For sure.
The only thing I can say, poor people had poorer ways. Always tell the story about Dad changing the engine out of the car to the truck, and from the truck back in the car.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah.
You had one engine and 2 vehicles.
Yeah, right.
And you had to change out your engine depending on which one you were going to drive to town, right?
They put a new engine in that truck in 1947, right before Curtis and Louise got married. And I guess they were just going to put a short block, and they wound up putting a new block, a new head. So that's all the good stuff to make a new engine, you know. They just got that thing fixed in time for the wedding, and the wedding was out at the rice place south of Holly. So after the wedding was over, we loaded up and went to Oklahoma to pick up Grandpa and Grandma.
with the bride and the groom.
Yeah,
riding
had
along.
2 mattresses in the back of the box in the truck back.
Romantic honeymoon there for sure.
Yeah. So the reason I can remember that so well, the preacher from Holly, he asked Mom how old I was and how old Mildred was. And I was 11 and Mildred was 7. The preacher said, "Oh, 7 come 11." You're rolling dice.
Uh-huh.
So I remember the age of it.
So you were 11 years old when you went on your oldest brother's honeymoon.
Right. Because that was always interesting. Truck always broke down on them trips around farming. It always run pretty good. Every time we go on a trip, yeah, it always broke down.
Yeah, I always wondered if Kurt and Louise's kids knew the story of you and Grandpa going on their honeymoon with them.
Yeah, I was asking about that sometime. I'll show them that check where I got $90 too. Say, well, I worked cheap.
Yeah.
There could have been another check a year or 2 later. I don't know. I had some cash. So I always had a hog to sell or a calf or something, you know. So that's where most of my income come from. So anyhow, Curtis came over one day, and I was in school, and Mom or Dad or somebody, they'd loan him $100 of my money. So what kind of deal is this? But I didn't worry about it. But anyhow, it must have been a couple of 2 or 3 years later. I said something to Dad about one day, and I don't know if he knew what was going on or not, but he said something about Curtis, told Curtis about it. Well, he come over. I didn't live in the 3-room house then. He come over. He was kind of mad, but that's money. So he gave me $200. I said, "Oh, you don't need to do that. Just give me $100 and I'll be happy."
Uh-huh.
Well, he gave me $200. He was mad because I hadn't paid up for 2 or 3 years.
So you got paid pretty good interest on your
Yeah,
$100.
money double.
And he probably didn't even realize he was borrowing money from you. He thought he was borrowing money from your dad.
I don't know what he thought.
Huh.
I don't know, Dad was pretty short on money there sometimes, but when he bought the farm over there, he got to be good friends with the brimcorn buyer. So he's loaning money. I don't know if all the money or part of the money to buy that land, which had been like $3,200. Then later, a few years later, he borrowed some more money from him. He bought a quarter section up north of the farm. It was grass. That time he borrowed it from the brimcorn buyer's wife. She had the money.
Oh,
You know, they could, you could pay them maybe 6%. They might get 2 or 3% otherwise. So,
right.
it's kind of weird how people done things in the old days.
Well, after coming through the 30s, they probably thought they were doing pretty good.
Yeah. Well, there was a time there you worked for like $1 a day, you know. In Arkansas, there at one time, Dad was making railroad ties out of oak. You get $1 for a railroad tie.
And you're just cutting them from an oak tree.
Yeah, it was all by hand labor.
Doing it all
a
by
lot
hand.
of sawing and stuff.
Wow.
I don't know if you had someone to help run the saw. You about have to need help on the sawing, I think, because the crosscut saw is a 2-man operation.
Yeah.
You see that saw down there in the round top? One of the pieces is missing off of the handle. I remember that when I was a little kid. Something. It's kind of a trick to it, you know. You pull it, and then on the other end he pulls it back, and you give another pull.
That's what he was doing when he was in Arkansas? You said when he was in Arkansas is when he was
That's when
doing
he made
that.
the rail tie.
And then it was Broomcorn that brought him up to Colorado.
Yeah. He come up that one year and brought some Arkansas years up in this 31 Chevy pickup. It had a board about this wide on the box, edge of the box set on. That'd be quite a ride, wouldn't it?
That'd be a long trip.
I don't know what they'd done on that time. I never did find out. Always when we went through the country, we'd stay in Laverne with a relation overnight. So it's a 2-day trip. And that's a pretty good trip for a vehicle running 40 miles an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
Of course, you'd go like all the way across Kansas if you was a little further north. Because we lived in the northwest corner of Arkansas. Of course, we'd go out of Arkansas into Oklahoma. But the first time I seen a tractor with paint on it, maybe the first tractor seen was in a little town named Southwest City, and that's in Missouri. There was an international dealer there, and he had something like a Cub or A or B or C. I remember seeing that. Maybe the first tractor I ever seen.
And you were younger than 7 because you moved out. You were 7 when you moved out to Colorado.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's your earliest memory?
I don't know how old I was, but I remember living in a place in Arkansas where Mildred was born. And Welber and I, Marilyn and Karen, we went down there a few years ago and drove out there where she was born. And we had this old car in a pretty steep hill, and didn't have enough power to make it up the hill. So everybody get out and push and put rocks behind the tires, you know. It was called, that car was called a Whippet. And Welber and I talked about it later on. I think the timing chain was slipped or something. It was getting out of time where it didn't have any power. But I remember the car, and it was black and had pretty good paint on it. I don't know how old it was. But the vehicle I remember the best was the 31 Chevy pickup. And we also had a 31 Chevy coupe that I don't remember ever riding in it. Maybe that was a parts vehicle or something. I don't remember ever riding that thing. I suppose, I don't know if you used it or not, just got it for parts.
Or it just wasn't its turn to have the engine.
What was weird about this story? The coupe, the dash was like this, and the pickup was straight across. Well, the frame must have been the same. Dad took the windshield out of the car and put in the pickup. except it had a gap in the middle. So we come to Colorado, you stick a blanket in that gap because there's no heater in there. We come out in December.
Oh
The
my
the
gosh.
snow's about a foot deep in south of Grenada. In December we come out here. Mildred and Mom and Dad, they rode in front all the time. Sometimes I'd ride them in front. Most time I rode in the back with the girls. We had a mattress in the back.
How did you stay warm back there?
Bunch of quilts. Up front, you got a little heat from the engine.
Right, right.
And we had to put a cover over top, and the mattress set up on the edge of the box. And underneath the box about yay high, stuck the coon handles in there, 2 coon handles in there.
They had the best fun.
The dog stayed warm under the mattress.
And of course, all the furniture and livestock come up semi of Holly. And Curtis come down with this guy. And the guy that run that place was John Hickson. And he's related to Hickson's out of Lamar.
Oh, okay. The guy that hauled the furniture.
And the cows.
Oh, okay.
They put the milk cows in the front and put the furniture back. Of course, you want more weight over the drivers, Semi-tractor looked like this truck I got up here on the hill, except it was older. It was like a 42 Chevy.
2 milk cows?
42, it might have been a 2-ton truck.
You have 2 milk cows?
Yeah, I don't know how many they had, 8 or 10, I suppose.
Oh, a lot of them. Okay.
Jerseys.
Oh, they were all milk cows then.
Yeah, and then we had some chickens,
And they traveled by truck too.
all in the same semi. The semi had a partition in the middle. That trailer must have been maybe 24, 25 feet long or something. You don't need a very big trailer. You got a truck like that pulling. I don't know how they made
Hogs? You
some
have
of
some
them hills.
hogs in there?
What?
Did you have any hogs?
No.
Just the cows and the chickens.
Mm-hmm.
So milk and eggs for breakfast
You bet.
once they showed up.
And we got to Holly. See, I think we must stay at Laverne. I don't know. But we stayed in a hotel in Holly the first night, out where the post office is at. And then the next night, we stayed over there in a motel by International dealership. There's a motel right there.
Right.
Second night. The third night, we was out on the farm. Curtis and Dad, they went out and cleaned out the weeds and the dirt and got a cook stove, some coal and heating stove, and so you move in.
So there was already a house out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was that the house that was sitting over the dugout? Was it? or
No,
there
they
was
had a
no house?
cellar right close to it.
Oh, okay.
The more I think about that, I think that kind of built-on thing, I think it had steps there. It went in the cellar, I think.
Oh, okay.
The cellar's still there.
How many rooms in that house?
Well, probably 3, I imagine.
Of course, I'm picturing Wolf Creek, but that wasn't Wolf Creek.
Yeah, Wolf Creek had a 4-room house, and we moved over there,
Okay, but the house you're talking about was out by Dale Schnabel's.
right south.
Dale Schnabel's house.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Only good thing about that deal is close to school. It's first time, I've been walking a mile and a half to school when I was a first grader and a half a second. Then we moved in there in December, just a short walk.
And your mom was a teacher there.
No,
Oh, she didn't teach there?
she
Oh,
taught
okay.
later years over at Eagle Hill, over
Oh,
Douglas's.
okay. I was thinking she taught in that house by
Yeah.
the house, or the school by the house.
So, I'll call old lady Pudge. She lived down south. She lived down there close to where Gene Bond lives.
Okay.
And she'd come to school. She had a Model A car to drive. And I went to school one day and I said, "Boy, we got a new car." And Curtis had bought this 36 Chevy before he went in the Army. But I said, we got a new car. She said, "What year is it?" 36 Chevy. "Oh, our pickup's newer than that." She had a 42 Chevy pickup. That blew my deal right then. It was a new car to us.
Right.
That's what we were
right.
talking about, a new car. Cars was kind of hard to come by then, during the war and the money situation too. I'm thinking Curtis gave 800, but I may just dream that up. I don't know. Seemed like a lot. It shouldn't cost that much new, I wouldn't think. We must have got it in 45 or something.
So whenever he went off to war, he left the car
He
behind.
left the car behind.
And you guys had
And I
the
think
car to drive.
Dad paid him for it when he got back, I guess.
Oh, okay.
When he went off the war, he him and Louise been dating, and she wanted to get married. He said, no, he didn't want to do that. He might not make it back, or he might get shot up or something. He didn't want to come back. People get married and got back.
Right.
So that's why they got married then in 47.
Oh, okay.
He got into Grenada. I don't know if he came on a bus or train or whatever, but he looked around town. There's kind of a horse trader in town. Had a 42 Chevy pickup, 3/4 ton Chevy. So he buys that from that guy. That's when I used to haul gasoline out the field when we worked over there.
By the barrel.
I rolled up 1 barrel one morning, next morning I'd take 2 barrels, because we burned about 1.5 barrels a day with a W6 and a D John Deere. Then later on, when I got out of school, then we put that 6 and the other tractors on propane. Think of all the dumb things I've done. Was in there at Manning's one day, and we was always in need of a tractor pretty bad. And Dad buys this W6 cheap, but it's not enough horsepower to do anything with it. So we was in need of tractors. So in there, and they had a WD9 all painted up. I don't remember the tars was what they was like, but I knew it had the paint on it. And so Dad was looking at that, and I think Leroy Robson, I remember he wanted $1,500 for it. So anyhow, after a while, Dad said, "What do you think about it?" Asked me. Well, I didn't do anything. I said, "Well, that sounds like a lot of money to me." That's a dumb thing to say. If I'd said, "Oh, we need a tractor pretty bad," he would have made a deal.
He would have bought it.
Man, he cooled off. I said that. He said, "Well," told Leroy, "I better talk it over with my wife." Well, but then you kind of give up on it. That was the end of it.
You could have had a nicer tractor to drive. You kind of messed up there.
Enough power to do something with it. They had it's in International in Lamar, and it's about where Napa's at. It's in there one day, and they had a new W9 gasoline. And the way I remember it, I think it was like maybe $2,600 for that. But when the war was on, you couldn't get a tractor for a while. You know, they quit making tractors. And so Daddy put his name on the list in Holly for Farmall M. And it seemed like it went about 2 years before his name come up. And they wanted $1,500, I think, for a new M. And so he didn't take it, so somebody else got it. You know, those F30s was cheap. They'd do about the same miles of work as AM anyhow. So that wasn't any big deal, I guess. Yeah, I'm taking up you guys' time.
Oh, that's all right.
I need to go up there